There are places on Earth that are vanishing. Venice is sinking. Oceans are drying up. But can any of these places be saved before it's too late? This is Disappearing Places of the World. Welcome to Lost Beyond the Map. Sitting on 126 islands inside a shallow lagoon, the ground beneath it, soft and fragile, this is Venice. Venice isn't anchored to solid rock. It rests on layers of mud, clay, and silt, held up by millions of wooden piles driven down into the mud. Over centuries, the weight of heavy buildings slowly compacts that ground, so the city sinks, quietly, steadily, and humans made it worse. In the mid-1900s, Venice pumped groundwater for industry, creating underground voids. Even though it was banned in the 1970s, the city had already sunk, about 15 centimeters over the last century. Add plate movement, and even boat wakes that erode the lagoon's sediment, and the foundation gets weaker. Also, the sea is rising. Venice's average sea level is already about 32 centimeters higher than it was in 1872, and experts estimate that by 2100 it could rise another 17 to 120 centimeters, depending on emissions. That's why flooding that used to happen once in a while now happens constantly. In 1900, St. Mark's Square flooded about 10 times a year. Today, it's closer to 100 times a year. Salt water soaks into brick and mortar. Then it dries, salt crystals expand, and the buildings can break from the inside out. So Venice built a shield. It's called the Mose Project. 78 retractable gates at the lagoon's inlets. When a tide of 110 centimeters or more is predicted, the gates rise and block the sea. But it's controversial. Cost overruns, delays, and fears that closing the lagoon too often could trap sewage and stagnant water. Venice is fighting, but it's fighting on soft ground, with a rising ocean at its door. But the next place flips the story, because it's disappearing not because the sea is coming in, but because humans pulled the water out, and the land itself starts to vanish into thin air. From the air, this place looks like it should last forever. So huge and so alive. This is the Everglades. The Everglades looks like a swamp, but it's actually a river, wide, shallow, and slow, called the River of Grass. It once spread across about 11,000 square miles. Today, it's been cut down to about half its original size. In the 1800s, people called it a worthless swamp and tried to drain it. Farms expanded. Today, the Everglades agricultural area covers 27% of the original ecosystem. Then the mission changed from drain it to control it. In 1948, Congress approved a giant flood control network, about 1,400 miles of canals and levees. That system severed the natural sheet flow that used to run from Lake Okeechobee to Florida Bay. And this is where the Everglades becomes a disappearing place in the most literal way. The ground here is peat, organic soil that took thousands of years to build. When wetlands are drained and peat meets air, bacteria break it down into carbon dioxide and water. So the land doesn't just sink, it vanishes into the air. Some areas have lost as much as 8 feet of soil depth. Salt water pushes into freshwater marshes, and peat can collapse into open water. Salt water is also intruding into the Biscayne Aquifer, a drinking water source for millions. And even the wildlife balance is shifting. Burmese pythons can reach 20 feet, and they're blamed for a 90% decrease in some native mammals. So the Everglades is being erased from both ends, water diverted away, and the ocean pushing in. The next place is built from river mud, layer by layer, for 6,000 years, but is now sinking at a very fast pace. For about 6,000 years, this dropped mud and sand, layer by layer, until water became ground. This is Mekong Delta. Researchers warn that much of the region, home to roughly 20 million people, could be underwater by the end of the century if current trends keep going. How does a place made by sediment start running out of land? It's not just the sea rising, it's the delta sinking and being starved at the same time. After thousands of years of creation, there are now three main factors contributing to Mekong Delta's disappearance. Firstly, upstream dams. A cascade of hydropower dams traps the sand and gravel the delta needs. The Mekong's sediment load has dropped by roughly 80 to 96%. No new material means the delta can't rebuild its shores and riverbanks. Secondly, sand mining. In Vietnam's portion alone, about 43 million cubic meters of sand are removed every year, 14 to 17 times faster than nature can replace it. When the riverbed deepens, the banks collapse. Homes and orchards can slide straight into the water, and those deeper channels can pull heavy salt water farther inland. Lastly, groundwater pumping. Pulling water from underground compresses the soft soils. The delta sinks about 1 to 1.6 centimeters per year, 3 to 4 times faster than global sea level rise. The delta's disappearance is inevitable. About 75% of the delta is less than 1 meter above sea level. If seas rise 75 to 100 centimeters, conservative estimates suggest nearly half the delta could be submerged. As river flow weakens, the sea encroaches inland. Salt contaminates freshwater and wipes out rice fields and fruit orchards. Even the defenses can backfire. Experts compare hard dikes and gates to squeezing a leaky hose. Block one spot, pressure and salt can rise somewhere else. A delta is supposed to grow forward. This one is being pulled backward by missing sediment and sinking ground. Next is something totally different, a disappearing place you can't walk through because it's underwater, an ecosystem so huge it's visible from space. The largest coral reef system on Earth, and the only living structure visible from space. This is the Great Barrier Reef. Great Barrier Reef stretches across 344,000 square kilometers, about the size of Japan. Corals build homes for life. An estimated 25% of all marine life depends on reefs, even though reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor. This one supports 1,500 plus fish species, 133 sharks and rays, and 6 of the world's 7 marine turtle species. So what does it mean for a reef to disappear? It starts with heat. When ocean temperatures stay too high for too long, corals get stressed and push out the algae that feed them and give them color. That's coral bleaching. Bleached coral isn't instantly dead, but it's suddenly hungry, weak, and easy to kill with disease. It's not just heat killing the reef, but humans also. The ocean absorbs about 30% of human-made carbon dioxide, which makes the water more acidic. That makes it harder for corals to build their skeletons, and the reef's calcification rates have already fallen 15% since 1990. Then, when weakened, storms finish the reefs off. Strong tropical cyclones physically smash coral cover, especially Category 3 or higher. Also, not only do storms destroy weakened reefs in acidic waters, but farm runoff clouds the water and feeds algae, and it can help trigger outbreaks of crown of thorns starfish, a predator that can wipe out giant patches of living coral. Great Barrier Reef has suffered 5 mass bleaching events in just 8 years. That means recovery time is disappearing. Scientists warn it could disappear within 20 to 30 years if current temperature trends continue. We now leave the ocean for a forest that fights the ocean off. A living wall of mangroves where the tide is so extreme that huge chunks of land vanish every single day. Here the tides are so extreme, about 1/3 of the land can literally vanish, then reappear. This is the Sundarbans. This is the world's largest single tract of mangrove forest, and it's one of Earth's most important natural shields. Millions of people depend on it for protection. But the shield is thinning. The biggest driver is the ocean itself. Satellite data shows sea level here has risen about 3 centimeters per year over the last 2 decades. And it's already erased real communities. Inhabited islands like Lohachara and Bedford have completely disappeared. Erosion is relentless. Around 71% of the forested coastline is retreating, sometimes by as much as 200 meters per year. Between 1969 and 2009, the Indian Sundarbans alone lost over 210 square kilometers of land. And because the average elevation is less than 1 meter above sea level, even small rises mean dramatic flooding. Also, there's a quieter killer: salinity. Upstream dams and diversions, especially the Farakka barrage, have reduced freshwater flow into the delta. Salt pushes farther in, and it's killing the sundri tree, the forest's most dominant species, through top-dying disease. The Sundarbans blocks cyclones, yet cyclones are also tearing it apart. Major storms like Cedar and Amphan have uprooted trees and breached embankments, and the Bay of Bengal is warming at 8 times the global rate, helping fuel more frequent, intense supercyclones. Finally, humans squeeze what's left. Mangroves cleared for shrimp farming, pollution, and ongoing pressure from a population of over 7 million. The Sundarbans isn't just shrinking, it's losing its strength, one bite of coastline at a time. Next, a megacity where researchers predict 95% of the north could be underwater by 2050. Often called the fastest sinking city in the world, nearly half this city sits below sea level. This is Jakarta. If the trend keeps going, researchers predict 95% of North Jakarta could be submerged by 2050. So what's erasing a mega city? The biggest threat isn't the ocean, it's the ground collapsing under people's feet. Jakarta is sinking because of excessive groundwater extraction. The city lacks a reliable, affordable piped water network, so residents, industries, even shopping malls drill into deep aquifers. Described as a deflating balloon, water gets sucked out and the layers above compact and drop. The city can't easily refill what it drains. Jakarta is so built over that about 97% of the surface is covered, stopping rainwater from soaking back down to recharge the aquifers. In North Jakarta, the ground can sink up to 25 centimeters a year. In just the last decade, parts of the north dropped 2.5 meters. For many residents, the disappearance of the city is already daily life. Some neighborhoods keep raising floors with rock and cement until people have to walk hunched inside their own homes. And at night, they listen for the hiss of water seeping through seawalls. So Indonesia is doing something drastic. It's moving its capital. The government is officially building Nusantara, over 1,000 kilometers away on Borneo. And it's also trying to defend Jakarta with a massive coastal dike, sometimes called the Great Garuda, plus restrictions on groundwater use and upgrades to water systems. Africa's highest peak, the world's tallest freestanding mountain. This is Kilimanjaro. For a long time, it carried something that didn't make sense: tropical glaciers, ice that has persisted for nearly 12,000 years. Here's what's happening. In 1912, Kilimanjaro's ice cover was about 11 square kilometers. By 2011, it had collapsed by 85%, down to roughly 1.76 square kilometers. And more recent estimates from 2022 suggest less than 1 square kilometer remains. But it's not just shrinking around the edges. It's thinning from the top down. Between 1962 and 2000, the ice surface lowered by about 17 meters. What used to be one cap has broken into pieces, the northern, southern, and eastern ice fields. And the most famous chunk, the Furtwängler Glacier, thinned so much it split in two between 2000 and 2009. Many scientists think it could vanish completely by 2030. So what's erasing it? Yes, warming air matters. But one of the biggest drivers is less snowfall. Shifts in Indian Ocean dynamics have made the summit air drier, so there's less fresh snow to replace what's lost, and less bright white cover to reflect the sun. Up here, ice can even skip melting and just sublimate, turn straight from solid into water vapor. Deforestation around the base may also reduce moisture and clouds, drying the summit even more. Current scientific consensus says Kilimanjaro will likely be ice-free between 2040 and 2060. When the ice goes, we lose more than a view. Those ice cores hold an 11,700-year climate archive, and it's being erased. Tourism could take a hit too because the White Summit is part of Kilimanjaro's identity. Next, we go from vanishing ice to vanishing water. A sea so dense you can float like a cork, yet it's dropping more than a meter every year, and the land around it is collapsing into thousands of sinkholes. In this sea, you can't really sink. The water is so dense that your body floats atop effortlessly. This is the Dead Sea. Right now, the Dead Sea is dropping by more than 1 meter every year. Since 1930, its surface area has shrunk by about 1/3, from around 1,050 square kilometers down to roughly 605 square kilometers by 2016. And as of 2025, the surface sits at nearly 440 meters below sea level. For centuries, the Jordan River fed the Dead Sea. But since the 1960s, Israel, Jordan, and Syria have diverted about 95% of that flow for agriculture and drinking water. The river that once surged in is now described as a trickle, often made up largely of sewage and farm runoff. Then there's industry. On both shores, companies pump huge amounts of water into evaporation ponds to harvest minerals like potash and bromine, accounting for roughly 25 to 40% of the total water loss. And climate stress tightens the vice, rising heat and falling rain in an already arid region. Not only is the Dead Sea waterline vanishing, but the ground collapsing. As the sea retreats, it leaves behind thick underground salt. Fresh water from floods or groundwater seeps in, dissolves that salt, and carves out hidden cavities. Then the roof gives way. That's how you get around 7,000 sinkholes, some hundreds of meters wide. They've swallowed parts of Highway 90, wrecked date palm fields, and helped force the closure of resorts like Ein Gedi and Mineral Beach. People ask, will it totally disappear? Scientists generally think it won't vanish completely. Salt gets more concentrated, evaporation slows, and it may settle into a smaller, saltier equilibrium, but they warn it could reach a radically different state by the middle of this century. And now, the final place takes this idea, a sea being drained, and pushes it to the extreme. A body of water that didn't just shrink, it turned into a desert and left ships lying on the sand. This used to be the fourth largest lake on Earth. In 1960, it covered about 68,000 square kilometers. This is the Aral Sea. Today, it has shrunk by more than 90%, and the sea it left behind is a brand new desert called the Aralkum. So what erased a sea? Not a drought, and not a natural cycle. Starting in the 1960s, the Soviet Union diverted the Aral's two lifelines, the Amu Darya and Syr Darya, to irrigate desert farmland for cotton, nicknamed white gold. And the canals were so inefficient that 30% to 75% of the water was lost to leakage and evaporation. The sea didn't just shrink, it broke apart. In 1987, it split into the North Aral and the South Aral. By 2003, the South split again into eastern and western basins. And NASA satellite images showed the eastern lobe dried up completely for the first time in modern history in August 2014. As water vanished, salt levels exploded. The water became so salty it was like brine. Most native fish couldn't survive. Nearly all of the 24 native species were driven to local extinction. The human cost is everywhere. A fishing industry that once employed 40,000 people was destroyed. Former ports like Muinak became famous for ship graveyards, rusted trawlers stranded tens of kilometers from water. And the sea's exposed floor became toxic. Wind now lifts salt and agricultural chemicals, pesticides and fertilizers, into dust storms linked to serious health problems. Without the sea, the local climate turned harsher too. Hotter, drier summers, and colder, longer winters. There is one sliver of recovery. In the North Aral, Kazakhstan built the dike Kokoral in 2005. It raised water levels by 12 meters, lowered salinity, and helped fishing return. But much of the south has been largely abandoned. Uzbekistan focuses on planting saxaul trees on the dry seabed to stabilize dust. A sea erased by human hands, until only desert remains. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and